everyone, welcome to the College Lens podcast. I'm Alokika and this is Gavin.
Hey everyone, I'm Gavin. Here at the College Lens, our goal is to target college isolation by bringing different perspectives and journeys that allows listeners to relate and feel a little less alone. Just a reminder, we are not professionals. We're here to listen just like you.
And we really quickly just wanted to thank Aspire Skill Development for supporting us. Now, off to the pod. Hello. We are back. Welcome to the College Lens. This is your host, Alokika, with your co-host, Gavin. Today we have another awesome guest speaker among us, Anicee. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
We're chilling. Gavin has midterms right now, which
Yeah, I'm in the thick of it right now. I go to CCU and I'm just preparing for two tests next week. I had one today, and so I am feeling tired, but I'm excited to be here. How are you doing, Anicee?
Yeah, I'm like you. I've got a presentation and an exam tomorrow, and I have like a meeting at 8 o'clock tonight, and I have two papers to write afterwards. So it's just a lot going on this week.
yeah, I'm like post midterms, so I'm like burnt out. Like we're all doing great. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Anicee, do you want to like really quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself to the podcast and the listeners?
Yeah. So my name is Anicee. I am a third year at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, and I'm studying clinical psychology. And I'm hoping in the future I can be some sort of therapist. I'm looking more into marriage counseling and marriage therapy. And I have a disability called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a brittle bone disease. So I've broken like over 200, 300 bones. And then I've had like over 4 9-hour surgeries. So just a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be like a lot with college in general that no one really talks about. I mean, I think college is an interesting journey for like, normal like people, but I think it can definitely take a toll in many different ways, both good and bad for people with disabilities. So I hope, am I right? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Luckily, I've not had any surgeries or broken bones during college, but it was a lot during middle school and high school. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So how has your college experience been so far? How's CSU treating you? What's it been like?
Yeah, so college so far has been really, really great. My third year has been amazing and smooth and just super exciting. I've gotten into my core classes now instead of my other classes, that were just kind of basic, um, classes like English and all that stuff. So now it's all like psychology and research, so I'm really into that. Um, and it's been pretty good so far. My first year was not the best year, but I had a lot of trouble with my roommate or my dorm hall, and then just kind of fitting in was really difficult, and like finding my group of people was very difficult. And then sophomore year, I started getting into more of like clubs and activities. And then that's like kind of when I started to like figure out where I belonged and what my journey was. And yeah.
Yeah, I can relate a little bit to that first part you were saying. I'm a freshman, but I got ahead on my classes a little bit. And so this semester I started taking some of my main core major courses, and it's a complete game changer in college. Going from getting the gen eds out of the way to classes you just love to be in, you love to learn, even though they're definitely more work, but they're so much more rewarding, and it just makes it a completely different feel.
Yeah. That's why
So,
like all sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
That's why like all my professors are like, oh, you just have to wait until your third and fourth year because things just get so much more exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like in my freshman year and I'm like, wow, I have like 4 more of this to go. So, which can be exciting and like nerve-wracking at the same time. So, but you're almost done. How does that feel?
It feels great. Yeah, I've gotten like a lot of classes right now, these next 2 semesters. And then after that, everything's gonna just be pretty smooth. But for psychology majors, things don't really end once you get your bachelor's. So
Right.
Right.
there's still more there's still more schooling, but I'm very excited for that and I'm hoping to go out of state. So that'll be
Ooh,
yeah.
nice. Out of state
That's
always sounds so
exciting.
much fun. Gavin's an out of
Yeah.
stater. How does that feel, Gavin?
Yeah,
Experience?
I'm from Southern California, which I will live and die by Southern California. It's the best place. It's very expensive, but the beach, the weather, all of it is just amazing. It is
How do you
perfect.
Yeah.
how do you like Colorado, Gavin?
Colorado's pretty cool. I like it a lot because I get the winter of Colorado, so I get the snow, I get to go snowboarding, I get to enjoy some fun hobbies that I like to do. And then during the summer, I get to go back home and enjoy the beach. So I get the best of both worlds.
Ugh, I
I
love
will
the
say though, Colorado, I did not expect the weather to be as all over the place as it is. I wake up and the
beach.
forecast is like, oh, it's gonna be 65 degrees, it's gonna be sunny, and then at 3 p.m. it's a blizzard. So that was a rude awakening.
Yep, welcome to colorful Colorado. Us Coloradans are nodding right now. We're like, yep, this is us. This is us. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
it is insane.
Well, going back to Anicee, why clinical psychology again? Like, what made you really get into that? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place, but I kind of knew I wanted to do that when I was in middle school and high school. But I like when I first started college, I spent I think a week being a psychology major, and then I was like, yeah, this is not it. And then
Oh,
I had to like switch within like a week. So and I went to like zoology and then I realized that was even worse. So then I went back to psychology and I've loved it. Yeah. And I regret switching. But luckily I had like taken all of my science classes for zoology, so then all I needed to do once I switched back was take all of my psychology classes.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
How stressful was it switching majors all over the place at the beginning?
Um, I was more worried that I was going to be behind. So I was very lucky that zoology was a science-based
Mm,
um, curriculum. So going from that to psychology just made the transition so much easier. But I think I've heard like a lot of stories at CSU where people will switch like 5 times. And so they
oh
don't
my
really,
goodness.
know, and then they like go back to college again and they don't, exactly know again or like, what they want to do. So I think it's never too late to switch your major and it's never too late to like figure out what you want to do. I mean, you don't have to decide right away. So yeah, I mean, I decided what my second year. So
Wait, so switching, like, does that kind of like get have like a social impact? Because you kind of changing your whole classrooms and stuff too, so your friends would change. So how was that? Like, did you have to deal with challenges with that?
yeah, so when I first started psychology classes, I loved all my professors. I loved all the people that I was working with. I had so many friends. And then I switched to zoology, and then I realized that all or most of the people that were taking zoology and were majoring in zoology were just so much more advanced than I was and
Mm,
doing so much other stuff and activities and just so much stuff. that
Mhm.
like I was not even doing, and I was like, I'm not fitting in. I'm not getting ahead. Like I don't feel, like I just don't feel like I know what I'm doing exactly. So just like that whole part of the zoology, and then like, not feeling like I was like everybody else was kind of not like the best situation for me. And
Yeah.
then when I switched back to psychology, and I realized that most of the people that were, in my major were just like me, and we're not even, getting ahead. We're just kind of taking it all in. And then again with psychology, you don't really get to do anything until you get your master's degree. So that just kind of made me feel better that, nobody was like getting ahead of other people or trying to do better. So, yeah.
How did you cope with that whole situation? Because I'm sure switching from psychology to zoology and seeing how everyone was in such a different spot, I'd love to hear maybe what the hardest part of that was or some things you did to help deal with that. And then eventually, when you came back to psychology, it probably felt like you were back where you belonged, if that makes sense. Like, I feel comfortable. This is my zone. So, walk us through some things you did to like cope and deal with it, and then how it finally felt to come back to psychology.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time at home when I was in my zoology era, I'm gonna call it. And it was just a lot of like discussing with my family and kind of saying like I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel, like I'm doing great, and I'm like failing my classes. I don't know what I'm doing. Everything looks the same. Everything is the same. Like it was just kind of repetitive, uh and luckily I had an advisor for zoology who kept in contact with my psychology advisor from the very beginning. So they were working with me to kind of figure out like how am I gonna succeed? How, should I keep going with zoology? Just push through. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna push through. I'm not gonna suffer. I'm not gonna challenge myself that way, even though I probably should have, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to suffer anymore. So I contacted my psychology advisor back again, and then I met with her in person, and the curriculum luckily had changed. So a lot of the like harder classes were now removed, luckily. So I got like a special treatment, I guess. And then like all the other students who had switched back to psychology as well had gotten that new curriculum. So, just meeting with her like opened my mind up, and I was looking at all the classes, and I was like, "Oh my God, I know like this is the class I want to take. This is the class I want to take." And I was so pumped up, and I was so excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew like why did I ever switch? Why did I switch? Like that was
Mm-hmm.
a very stupid decision. But yeah, I've just been really happy ever since.
Yeah,
That's
there's, I think some students can be put in an interesting situation, and so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What if there's a student who in a major that they really enjoy and are passionate about, but they're in kind of a zoology situation where it's really difficult classes, they feel kind of overwhelmed, there's other people, but they really enjoy what they're in. And so the difficulty is making them think about switching majors, but they still really enjoy it. What would you say the best option is there?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the option of having a major and a minor. So if you really enjoyed, zoology, you could totally major in that. And then you also love psychology, you could major or minor in psychology. So there's that option to major and minor. It is also I think what a lot of people don't understand is that having a and a minor is having 2 degrees. So you have to take all the classes that are required for each zoology and psychology, if that was the route you wanted to take. So I didn't really want to necessarily have a degree in both zoology and psychology. But that is an option for people who really enjoy both. And I obviously enjoyed zoology. I still learn things and I still see things and
Yeah.
keep up with the news. Um, but I'm not like certified in like
Mhm.
this animal and whatnot. Um, but I still, and I'm still good friends with people in the zoology um major, and I still like keep up with them as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that because I know a lot of people can, like Gavin said, can be on the cusp of like, okay, well, should I do it? What if I do? Like, what if it doesn't work out? And like all the what ifs just like swarming in the head, especially for the overthinkers, because I'm one, he knows that too. But so yeah, well, thank you. Okay, so now kind of pivoting because I definitely want to know your side of like the disability aspect of, being a person with a disability on campus because I also, for the listeners, have a disability called caudal regression syndrome. So I'm also on a wheelchair. By the way, we cruise on the in the hallways, so watch out because it's not my fault if I run over you. But well, what has your experience been with that?
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with my family today about how much my confidence has increased since having my service dog.
Yeah.
And I think it can be a challenge if you are not already kind of experiencing the outside world and kind of external environments and a lot of stuff going on and people, and so it was just very overwhelming when I first started. And I was very introverted. I was very shy, and I didn't want to see anybody, and I was afraid of what people would think of my wheelchair or think of me, and who am I going to make friends with, and how am I going to make friends, and how am I going to get in my classes? Are there buttons? I mean, there's just so much that I could just go on and on about that most people wouldn't even think of.
Yeah.
And so dealing with all of that was a major struggle my freshman and sophomore year. And I just did not have the confidence to be assertive and to ask for what I needed and to ask for like moving a chair or moving a desk, or
Mhm.
asking a professor like, hey, this is what I need, or and also I don't know how many colleges have a student disability center. That's what we call it at CSU,
Mhm.
where we can have accommodations and just so much involved with that organization. So not a lot of colleges have that option. So I was really, really lucky that CSU had that.
Yeah.
And when I first moved into the dorm, I had contacted an advisor from the Student Disability Center to help me kind of transition into my dorm life. So it was it was definitely it takes a village kind of situation.
Yeah.
Um and my parents had, or my family had lived like um an hour away, so I had to figure out what I could do and
Yeah.
keep up with things, with them being so far away.
Yeah.
So and I would definitely say since my end of sophomore year and beginning of junior year has been definitely like a new I don't know, a new version of me, a new
Yeah.
yeah, a new, again, I'm gonna say era. um but it's just I don't know, I feel like since I've been in college for so long now, I've kind of figured out like who I am and like my role, I guess, and everybody kind of knows me now, and everybody like opens the doors, and
Yeah.
I even like see people from classes over and over again who's like, oh, that kid like needs that table moved over or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
really helpful instead of going into a class starting all over again and being like, hey, move this for me.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I think since you're a junior now, you have much more more experience. Well, I'm a
yeah.
freshman, so I had to deal with like things like of that sort too. But I think like there's also like people are very, how do put this? Like people get confused with like helping people, but then also having that like bias of ableism. And for people who don't know what ableism is, it's like kind of like idea of like discrimination, prejudice, or systematic bias against individuals with disability, which again, people might not be doing that on purpose, but it just comes off that way. And us as people with like disabilities, like sometimes don't know how to deal with that because we're not like there's nothing to pity about, you know? Like that's the biggest thing that I want to put across to people who are listening to. Like it's nothing we love our lives. Like it's not like anything of that sort, you know? Like I think the biggest thing that they don't tell you when you come to college is that like in high school, everybody for accommodations has a 504 plan. And a 504 plan, Gavin, basically is like a little form that you like sit with your counselor and like your principal and everybody like you talk to them about what all you need, like accommodation with like desks like heightened up or like, you know, lab tables or anything of that sort that'll help make your life much more easier. And when I got here, I was like, there's nothing of that sort here. Like, you have to literally figure it out by yourself, which again is not a bad thing because I mean, I guess college is the introduction to the real world, but at the
Mhm.
same time, it's just like a little like shock, like, okay, I'm like on my own now. And I
Mhm.
don't know, have you had issues with accessibility? Because I think I have just a little bit here, but how's CSU treating you with that?
Yeah, well, going back to that 504 plan, I always wanted to keep my 504 plan
Yeah.
throughout high school.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that my family was kind of like, no, let's kind of slowly get rid of it, junior in high school and then finally get rid of it in senior in high school. So I think that kind of transition made me really like figure out how am I gonna, transition into classes and all this. And I
Yeah.
didn't even realize like that each semester was a new class, a
Yeah.
new situation. Like I didn't even know that. So that was also a shock for me, and I was like nervous every single time I started a new semester. So to answer your question as to the accessibility, I think the Student Disability Center does a great job of um emailing teachers and including you in those emails for accommodations and things that you need and extra time on tests and um, you know, leaving early or how many days you can have, um, where you don't have to attend class and you're not affected by it. So, the Student Disability Center is great for that. Um, as far as like other accessibility issues, I think CSU does a phenomenal job of, making sure that everything is kept up and, cleaned and all this stuff and
Yeah.
buttons mostly worked except in freshman year I was really struggling. But ever since then it like because I'm just so assertive and
Yeah.
that people are like, okay, Anicee's coming. I need to make sure that this is working.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, and then I think this past semester I struggled with getting to one of my classes because it was snowing. And I've never had this problem at CSU because they have always shoveled immediately and again over and over. But this one, the night before, it was just a blizzard. And luckily, class was canceled.
Hmm.
And I had called campus police and I was like, hey, this has to be fixed.
Yeah.
And just kind of like understanding like you can call the police, you can call Fort Collins, you can call traffic centers, you can get the resources that you need because you're the only person who can ask for help, and nobody is going to understand or see that you need that help.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
any like funny stories of like people coming up to you and saying like random things and you're like, huh? Because I have
Oh
a
yeah.
funny story after you share.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten so many things, especially with Maverick. Um, I mean, there's just things like, that people with disabilities experience, such as like, oh my God, God created you for a reason, or God is there for you. And I'm like, okay, thank you, but no thank you. And like, you hear those things all the time. And then there's also situations where like I'll go down a sidewalk and then students are like going back and forth and like trying to figure out which way to go,
Oh my gosh,
and then
yeah,
I'm like,
that's a big
just
thing.
stick to one place. Just stick to one place and I will move over,
Yeah.
Or like they'll completely like walk off the sidewalk. I'm like, you don't need to do that. There's plenty of space.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's something that I've also seen. Like when you're just like minding your own business and people are like, oh my God, where do I go? Oh my God.
yeah,
Funniest
exactly.
thing. There's
Sure,
one.
I'm sure a lot of the time it's like not out of trying to like isolate, but it's like, hey, like we do want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, yeah.
obviously, I have never experienced having to be in a wheelchair or anything along that sort. And so, if there is somebody in a wheelchair, my natural inclination is honestly, I don't know what your experience is. So, I want to get out of the way, make it as easy as possible,
Yeah.
not in a way to try and isolate or anything like that,
Oh yeah,
but
no.
just to like, hey, maybe it's easier. So, I'm willing to take the very minor inconvenience to take a half step off the sidewalk, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think we're not saying it in like a oh my God, they're so annoying way. It's just funny when the way people react. Like there was
Okay.
this one time where like there was this one time when people just assume things about you, like that kind of situation. But like there was this one time I was in this club and I was like, oh, I wasn't feeling good or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling good. I think I'm coming down with something, but I'll probably like leave early or something like that. And this girl goes, oh, are you taking your medication on time? And I'm like, excuse me? She's like,
Yeah.
did you take your medicine? I'm like, okay, first off, I don't take medication, but that's none of your business. And second, like, you can't be saying stuff to people like that, even though, I mean, I'm sure she
Yeah.
didn't. But like, I feel like having just that subconscious, like, thinking like you can't be like that, you can't say stuff to people like that. I don't know. I would laugh
Mm,
about it, but just I mean it's funny, but like stuff like that is what we mean, you know? Because like that's just so irrelevant and like where did that even
right.
come from? Like why does that need to be said? So stuff
Um,
like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten things like, oh, can you date? Or, oh, do you know like how to study? Can you study? Or like, are you smart? Or like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm here. Like, I'm in college. Yeah, I'm smart. And like, and I'm like, yeah, I can date. Like, I don't understand what like the problem is here.
Mm,
So it's just kind of like those things, those minor things.
And yeah,
And then I run a disability club, and I
oh yeah.
remember this one story of this girl who she can walk some days, and then some days her disability just is really bad, and she has to use a wheelchair. And she's gotten comments like, "Well, you could walk the day before. Why are you using wheelchair now?" And it's just kind of like, well, things just
Oh my
happen.
gosh.
Like it's not like something that I'm like, oh yeah, like it's not just something that they would choose to use a wheelchair one day and not the other day.
Yeah.
mm,
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the overarching thing about like our podcast is isolation. And I think the biggest thing like Gavin and I have learned is that like college isolation comes from so many different aspects. You know, like someone can be literally like smiling, but they could still be going through college isolation and you wouldn't know it, you know, because they're feeling lonely in some sort. Someone might be like, just existing and people be asking them like things like that about their disability, even though they don't know how to approach them, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, we're not trying to like complain like, oh, people are like this, but I just think that we just take things in such a humorous way that if like a normal person had to face that, they'll be like, what? You know?
Yeah.
So I just think that's just like kind of how we roll. But yeah.
Yeah. And I this is like something, and if somebody says like a disability joke, then they're like, "Oh my God, did I offend you?" I'm like, "No, that was hilarious. Like, tell me more. Like, I want to hear more, disability jokes. I think they're really funny. Unless if it offended me, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, maybe not that one." Yeah.
So
Uh,
how was the experience with like creating your own club? Because I know I've wanted to do that for a long time.
yeah. I would definitely say that starting a club can be exhausting and just very tiring, and it's a lot of work, but in the end it's so rewarding. And when I had first started my club, the disability club, I struggled with finding officers, and I struggled with finding an advisor, and I struggled with funding, and I struggled with getting people to join the club. I mean, and those were just some of like the minor things I'm gonna say. But now that I have the club, just I love it, and I love hearing other people's experiences, and I love seeing new disabilities every day. I love seeing new people. I love just kind of experiencing new disabilities, and I think that's and we also we invite people without disabilities to kind of educate them about how to approach somebody with this disability or this disability. So it's not just for people with disabilities, it's for parents and caretakers and siblings and partners and whatnot, and to just kind of learn about like what we experience daily.
Yeah.
um yeah. I will say that when you start a club, I think the major thing is finding people to be part of the club. That's very difficult. And right now, I mean, this is just our first semester of having the disability club. So we only have like 6 people, 5 or 6 people in the meetings every week. And we have like this huge room. And I'm like, okay, well, there's this many people. I mean, and so I reached out to so many organizations, and I asked them to promote our stuff, and I asked them to put it on Instagram stories and posts and all of this. And um we have an organization specifically made for creating smaller organizations called Slice. And so I even asked them to like promote the club, and um so just getting people going to those involvement fairs and finding those organizations can be really, really helpful. But I think I struggle with like thinking that I needed so many people to be a part of the club in the beginning, when that's not really true. And I think even having a smaller group of people, my anxiety is less.
Yeah.
So, and I just feel more comfortable. And I've always had a problem with public speaking, but finding your group of people, that goes away. And like I never struggled with speaking in front of the group, and I never struggled with like talking about like our deepest secrets, or deepest problems or struggles daily. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that experience of starting a club is really cool, and I think the College Lens podcast could use some help with that. What's the best way to advertise? Because of course we want to get our name out there. We want people to be interested in it, come on the podcast, review, anything like that. What do you think are some tips you had to marketing, getting your name out there?
Yeah. So for clubs at CSU, you have to have an advisor. So our advisor for the club is somebody that works in the Student Disability Center. So that worked out great. And he was also the person that helped me move into my dorm. And it's also the advisor and advocate for other officers in the club. Um, but when I first started, I created, I want to say, 100 flyers, and I just posted them all around campus. I posted them in buildings, in front of doors, on the door handles because it's a disability club, and on buttons and elevators and everything in the library. And I probably printed out more. But and I was even telling our advisor, hey, can you take this flyer, email people because they do like a weekly or a monthly uh letter or an email and just kind of promote the club. And he said, yeah, we'll do that. And he had like put a flyer in his office, and then in the building they put a flyer right there so that you could get one where all like the note cards or whatever um or sorry, business cards were. So just kind of, I mean, I want to say like the best advice is just, don't be afraid to like put it wherever you want, even like places where you don't see a flyer hanging, like put it there, like put it where people are the most. And for CSU, it's the Lori Student Center, as well as the library. So unfortunately, no flyers can be posted in the Lori Student Center, but I did a lot of it in the library, in dorms. You can post them, where new students are coming, and some students are even coming like every semester.
Yeah.
So just posting it there too as well.
Like the
Um,
transfer students and stuff, right? Yeah.
yes, exactly. And we have international students that come mid semester. So yeah, just kind of, I don't know, like just putting it wherever you want. Like don't be afraid to, just post it
All right.
somewhere.
Gavin,
Yeah.
how is the flyer situation in your school? Is it pretty
It's
lenient?
really there's kind of designated areas. I know at the bottom of my housing, there's like a board you can pin it on. There's a board near the calf. There's a board in the other housing. So it's not really just throw it wherever. There's some designated spots, but they get some foot traffic, and so
Really?
definitely it's been those are the places I've put it, but they've been in great spots. They've been
I
in
didn't
great
know
spots.
that like sometimes you gotta take permission, so I just kind of put it in like every billboard that I saw, or not like billboard, but like any like board that I saw in like the business building and stuff like that. And then the next day, it was there, but like some were missing. And then as the week went on, they were all gone, and I was like, okay, so I guess I do need to take permission. So I did take permission, and then it was all there. So who knew flyers were such a big deal? But
Yeah, I never had
And
thought about that.
some bulletin boards do require that permission, and I just post it anyway. And I think, I guess like the really lucky part is that if you have a disability, nobody's gonna be like, okay, well we should get rid of this, disability flyer. I'm like, but again, that's why I like putting it in classrooms and like outside of classrooms. Um, is really, really helpful instead of just using those bulletin boards. I know there's so many on campus, but I hardly ever see people that actually stop at those bulletin boards.
Mm.
And most people are just walking around campus, and if you put it like by stairs, people are gonna immediately be drawn to that. And then using bold colors, and bold lettering and all of that. We also made these buttons. I had like handmade them, and it was a disaster, and it like this was so lopsided, but we still use them anyway. And just having those two when we had the involvement fair, we just like threw them on the table and kind of was like, take one, take two, take whatever, share it with your
Yeah.
friends. Um, so yeah, just like try to get as much as like marketing so you could get like bookmarks, pencils, stickers, buttons, whatever you want, whatever your school can provide.
Noted. I'll keep that in mind. Everybody viewing, let us know. Would you like to see some College Lens merchandise, pencils, buttons, t-shirts? You never know. Never know. I do.
Stickers. Wink, wink.
Oh yeah, we do have stickers and cups that are coming soon. Little leak there. But Anicee, I want to go back a little bit. You talked about, I think your freshman and sophomore year, you were a little bit farther away from home. You said your parents were about an hour away. How
Yeah.
was that experience? Because I know me, I moved way out of state. I did not see my parents until Thanksgiving break, and that can be overwhelming. It could be isolating. It could be difficult for students. So how was your experience with that?
Yeah. I think in the beginning, people, when you like go to your freshman groups or whatever in the very beginning during orientation, I think a lot of people will say things like, "Oh yeah, my parents, sure they're there, whatever, I don't care, whatever." But like the truth is, a lot of people care, and a lot of people will
Mm-hmm.
call their parents daily,
Agreed.
weekly,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to see their family. They want to see, they want to be a part of their family, and see their dogs they're missing. So just kind of that like whole concept kind of bothers me a little bit. And I didn't know that until my third year, and which was unfortunate because I thought like I needed to have this mindset of like not I don't need to talk about my parents or whatever to my friends. Um but um having my family an hour away in the beginning, I was like, okay, see ya, bye.
Mhm.
Good luck. I hope you miss me. And then, we kind of do like a back and forth bantering. We're not gonna miss you, whatever. And then I think and this even happens today. I will call them 3, 4 times a day, and I'll just be like, I miss you guys, or like say random things, like how's the dog or whatever. Um, and now they live 20 minutes away. And actually, now that they have moved closer, I don't really get to see them a lot because of how busy my schedule is. But when they lived an hour away, I think I would go home every other weekend. Um, and also, like my freshman year was not that busy, so so I really wanted to go home all the time. And now I want to move further away from home. But also, I struggle with seeing how much my family's helped me since moving 20 minutes away. I mean, my chair didn't work at one point, and like they drove 20 minutes away, and they were like, "Yeah, we're here."
Mhm.
So just kind of like being watchful of that, and like kind of having that in the back of your mind of like, is my chair gonna break down? Am I gonna hurt myself? Like, who's gonna be there? So I'm hoping that the new school that I moved to will have a some sort of accommodation or something, that I can just call somebody if something happened.
I think in this day and age, like people are like, oh yeah, like they think it's cool that calling your parents like 2 times a week is a flex. But honestly, I'm like, guys, you can be proud of calling your parents every day. They miss you,
Yeah.
you miss them. Like, let's face it. How is it with you, Gavin? How often do you call your parents?
At the very beginning, I was definitely very much into the no, like I don't miss home, like putting on that whole facade. But I really did miss home. And I know this semester I've talked to my parents a whole lot more. And then later last semester, I typically call them. I try once a week, but I'll usually do about twice a week. Just give them updates, see how life is, because yeah, I do miss home. And then my younger brother, I text him as much as I possibly can. But it is like for everyone watching, and you feel like, oh, it's not cool to call your parents, talk to them every day. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? Like, talk to your family. They love you. They care about you. At the end of the day, they're the ones who are gonna be there for you the
Exactly.
most. And so just take advantage. Talk to them as much as you can. I saw a statistic, I think earlier in the week, where you talk to your family less and less after the age of 22, I think it is. It peaks at around 15 and then drops slowly, which is really sad
Yeah.
because you should want to talk to your family more and more. And so while you have that access to them, while you have any free time, you should just give them a call and talk to them.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense. And I would even say I think men probably call their parents more often than women. I think men don't or people don't really understand or realize that men are also emotional and miss their family as well. So, I mean, I think, I do see that I still talk to my parents a lot, but I don't see them as much as I should or can.
Yeah, everybody should call and miss their family, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Super
So,
cute.
Anicee, we have one last question for you
Yeah.
before we wrap it up. So if you could go back in time and see
Mhm.
the Anicee 3 years ago, what would you tell her and what piece of advice would you give her?
That's a great question. I would probably say just be who you are. I think I struggle with you know, kind of just like voicing my own opinions, and especially to like my family, if like something I'm learning in school or whatnot. And I kind of talk about it with my family or friends, and they don't necessarily agree with me, then I'll be like, okay, well, kind of see my point of view or whatever. So I guess just kind of like being my own self and not being afraid of like my wheelchair or not being ashamed of it, or just kind of accepting like my body and like my dog. Not everybody's gonna react the same way to my dog or my wheelchair. So just being okay with that.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I know both Gavin and I have had a blast, and we just want to thank you and for coming on and, sharing your experiences and perspectives with our audience.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, there it was, guys. Our conversation with Anicee about her college experience. We hope you enjoyed. And yeah, that's it for the College Lens for today, and we will see you next time.